So
exactly.
tell us what you learned about, like, okay, so underwriting a paramed exam policy. You had to order an exam. So tell us about your experience. Who did you order the first exam through?
Oh gosh, is it like exam one?
Exam one,
But then I ended up using apps.
APPS apps.
Yes, because the come out to their house people like no, the first one was exam one,
Exam
the
one.
second one was apps, I think, because they wanted the medicals done like as soon as possible. So they had to drive like an hour and go to the appointment, and they were very willing to drive that hour to get the appointment done instead of waiting like 9 days. So
That was
learned
for the
that.
wife, right?
Yes. And I've been trying to do online with them, but it's just easier for me to call them and make an
Yeah.
appointment. And they keep telling me, you can call online. I'm like, yeah, I can. I can also just call you.
Yes.
And while I was on the phone with them, I started texting the husband, like, are you available at 8? Are you available at 1? And so right there on the phone, he was like, I'll take the 8 o'clock. And I booked an appointment for them right then and there. So
That was exam one or apps?
that might have been exam one because at that point they at first they were kind of complaining about not having someone come out, and then when they realized it was going to take so long, they were fine with driving an hour.
Okay. And then apps actually booked a nurse to come to their house, right? For the wife?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
So,
don't know. It's
yeah,
blurry at this point because we've done a lot of like hustling to get things done.
yeah, yeah. So we're crossing our fingers. With any fully underwritten policy, you run the risk of them finding something wrong with their blood and urine test. And then also they requested APS, right, on the mail,
Well, what is an APS? What do you mean?
attending physician statement, like medical records.
Yes, which I texted you immediately when they sent that, and you said call him right now and tell him to like, see if they'll expedite that for him. So he did, and they got on it pretty fast. So
Oh, they did.
yeah, it
Okay.
was a good tip.
Yeah, so gang, if ever you're doing fully underwritten, we don't really teach it a lot because we try our best to do simplified issue where there is no blood and urine test. When you do run into a situation where there's something on the app that requires the insurance company to request medical records, the most important thing, number one, is to make sure all their doctors are listed in the application. So you don't leave out any doctors that have anything to do with their medical history. Because should they require medical records, you want them requesting it from the proper doctor. Like, for example, let's say they have an endocrinologist, right, that deals with endocrinology, okay, kidney, diabetes, typically, whatever. And there's a hiccup in the MIB that shows maybe there's something more to their kidney condition or diabetes. And so if you don't put the endocrinologist in there, the insurance company has no choice, but they're going to request records from their primary care physician. The only problem is the primary care physician doesn't have any specific records relative to what they're looking for. So what happens is they're going to request medical records. Sometimes records will take 30, 60 days, okay, to go in. So I'm describing to you the nightmare problems with fully underwritten pyramid exams. And
Yep.
so I'm sorry.
Oh, I agree. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So 2 months later, the insurance carrier will notify you saying, hey, who is their endocrinologist? Because these are not the records we're looking for. And then you go back to the client. This is 60 days later, and you're going, hey, Mr. Client, we need to request records from your endocrinologist. Who's your endocrinologist? And they say, well, I think it's Dr. Webb on Forest Park Place. So you look it up and you find the doctor. Then it takes another 30 to 60 days for that doctor to turn in medical records. By this time, it's 3 to 4 months, okay? and you still haven't gotten anything issued because they're waiting for the APS. Like, I'm not kidding. This stuff happens. When you're doing a paramed exam, this stuff happens. You're waiting forever. And if you don't keep your client informed at least once a week, saying, hey, we're still waiting for your medical records. Hey, you're really in underwriting purgatory. Okay. And it could take forever, and you potentially can lose a client. Because here's the problem with APSs is that they're going to get the last 5 years of medical records on the client. And then what they're going to do is the doctor, the underwriting physician on staff, is going to read the medical records. And what typically they will find is a condition that the client did not disclose that causes the client to be declined because they looked at 5 years worth of medical records. Okay. This stuff happens. So it becomes an issue. Okay. Hopefully it'll go through, but the more that they can scrutinize their health situation, the higher opportunity for them to find something wrong to decline it or potentially rate it up, because it gives them an opportunity to rate it up to a higher risk class because they found more things wrong with the client. Okay. Now, if I'm sounding pessimistic, I meant to sound pessimistic because I want you to understand why we do simplified issue. But in certain cases, we don't have a choice because either the amount of the insurance that the client's looking for, or, it just forces us to have to go to do a paramed exam type product. So some ways to mitigate the APS problem is, like I said, put every possible doctor that they deal with on the application so that should an APS come up, they can send it to the right doctor. Then the other thing that you can do to expedite the process, because remember, a lot of these physicians have part-time records people, okay? And they deal with these requests for copies of the medical records, because they've got, 2,000-3,000 clients, and they're requesting medical records because those clients are applying for life insurance or health insurance, okay? And so this person that comes in twice a month on Thursdays, they deal with these requests. So that's why it takes so long. They go through and they make copies of the last 5 years, they bundle it up and ship it out to the company. They charge the company like $350 per record. Okay. So that's the moneymaker for them. But their part-time records person comes in twice a month, if you're lucky, once a week. So do you see, if they don't get to where your client's request is in the inbox, then they got to wait 2 weeks until that records person comes in again and processes it so it could be 2 months. Like, I'm not kidding, gang. It could be 2 months because a medical records person only comes in once, twice a month, maybe once a week if you're lucky, right? Am I painting an adequate picture for you to understand the pitfalls of writing fully underwritten policies? Okay. So like you said, sometimes we can't get around. So another way to expedite it is have your client call the doctor's office and say, hey, just want to give you a heads up. You're going to get a request from medical records from a third party company. It's not okay. So just so you know, and I'm purposely going over this in detail because I want you to learn this. These insurance companies use a third party, and a lot of times it's the APS companies that we use. Sometimes they use apps or EMSI. EMSI is a company that's a popular one that they use. So they pay EMSI to get the records. So EMSI will be the one to request medical records on behalf of F&G Life or whomever, Foresters, whomever you wrote. So it's coming from a third party. So it could be EMSI, it could be apps. Those are the two I'm familiar with that request medical records. And so you need your client to say, you're going to get a request from a third-party company requesting my medical records. Can you please look out for that? And can you please expedite it? I'm applying for life insurance and I don't want to die before the policy's underwritten. Okay. That's a very real possibility with some of these people. Okay. So You need your client to advocate to get this thing done quick. The other problem with medical exams is that when you're booking a medical exam, fortunately, this is a motivated client who wants to get this policy done, but you run into the run-of-the-mill client that, and you say, okay, now the Paramed exam company is going to call you to schedule an appointment. Okay. So when you get it, make sure you schedule it for as soon as possible so you can make sure it gets done. Okay. So that's what you tell the client. So you remember that part where you try to call the client, 25 times until you got them on the phone? Guess what? The Paramed exam company is going to have the same problem you did. They're going to keep calling. It could be 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Okay. And then the company finally gets a hold of the client. But here's what happens more often than not. They'll try for 2 weeks to try to get a hold of them. They'll call every day. Then they'll notify you on the website. So you're on the website, you'll notice when you decide to check the status of the underwriting, you're going to read there on the website, cannot get a hold of the client. And please confirm the phone number. And what you'll find out is that has been sitting there for 2 weeks. And because you decided to check the website, that's when you find out that there's a hiccup in the Paramed exam. Okay, again, am I painting the picture? And so you call the client, say, and you're having trouble getting hold of them. All of a sudden you find the client, say, hey, what's up? We never got a call. Okay. So this is when you tell the client, hey, listen, why don't we call this 1-800 number and let's schedule your Paramed exam. Okay. So I'm going to stay on the line and I'm going to dial it for you while you're on the phone. And I want you to talk to the Paramed exam company and schedule a time. Okay. Do you see what you're trying to do? You're trying to get it done. And you actually can do that when you're sitting with the client. After you do the app, hey, let's go ahead and schedule your Paramed exam. Okay. Do you see what techniques you need to do in order to facilitate getting it done quick? The other thing that you're going to find that will really make you mad. This is one of the things beyond the Paramed exam or the APS. The part about the Paramed exam, this will really get you upset, is when you finally check the website, okay, like I recommend calling the company every 2-3 days. Hey, what's the status of my client underwriting? Okay. But you'll find on there, it'll say the client declined, decided not to go through the policy. That will torque you off because you would spend all this time trying to get medical records. And then all of a sudden you find out through the Paramed exam company, the client decided not to go through with it. Okay. And you find out 2 weeks later after the client declined because you checked the website. Well, Alex, should they email me and call me? Yeah, they should, but they don't. Okay. Never depend on them letting you know what's going on. You have to actively manage your client. Okay. So you got to check with them every 2-3 days, 4 days, say, hey, what's the status of the underwriting? And they'll tell you some smart ass thing. You say, well, did you check the website? Yeah, but I want to know what the current status is. Current. Because a lot of times they know status that they don't report on the website. It might take them a week to update the status on the website from their knowledge. Okay, like I am not kidding. This is what happens when you totally rely on the insurance company to manage your case. Okay. Again, am I painting the picture of doing fully underwritten policies? You think I'm kidding? Do you know that the placement rate on fully underwritten policies is right around 25-30%? Okay. So the decline rate on fully underwritten policies are pretty high. Okay. For all the reasons I'm mentioning. So one of the things you could do is when you order a Paramed exam from a Paramed exam company, you do what they call as a preset appointment. So when you're with your clients, you say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Client, let's go ahead and let's kind of find a time where you're free to do a Paramed exam. So what the Paramed exam nurses are going to come out, they're going to weigh you, they're going to measure you, They're going to ask you a bunch of the same health questions that I asked you. Then they're going to draw your blood and they're going to make you pee in a cup from 10 feet. Just kidding. Okay. So they're going to do all that stuff. Now, the best time to do a paramed exam is in the morning because you're supposed to fast 6 to 8 hours. So let's schedule a morning time when you're going to be home that the paramed exam nurse can come and do that appointment. So today's Tuesday night. You think you're going to be home and give the med company 3 to 4 days, give them a chance to book a nurse on a preset appointment. So if it's Tuesday, I'll ask them, are you free Friday morning or Saturday morning? Well, either morning. Okay, good. Why don't we do Friday morning and the company, what's a good time for you? 8 o'clock? So let's put a range, between 7, you think you'll be home Friday between 7 and 10 a.m.? Is that a good window for you? Okay, great. Okay, what I'm going to do when I order this is I'm going to let the paramed exam company know that you're free from 7 to 10 a.m. Friday morning. Okay. So now you call the paramed exam company and you book that company. The key word is I have a preset appointment for my client. The client can meet between 7 and 10 a.m. Friday morning. And then they're going to say, okay, give me your client's name, social security number, insurance company that you're writing with, how much insurance are they getting? And from that information, they should know what should be ordered, like a blood and urine test, blood, urine, paramed questionnaire. Typically, it's blood, urine, and paramed questionnaire is typically what they order. Yeah, that's pretty standard, okay? All right, again, am I painting the proper picture for you? All right, so that's another way that you can expedite getting the paramed exam done, okay? Does that make sense, gang? Am I overstating this, or I'm waiting for the agent to say, "Well, I never have problems with fully underwritten policies." Well, then you're the unicorn, all right? And part of the reason is I want to put the fear of God in you to know so that you understand what you're dealing with fully underwritten policies. You might write a big policy, but you got to mitigate all the risks. One way to mitigate the risk of doing a fully underwritten policy is when you ask the client questions, you say, okay, now this is actually the way to do it on all your questionnaires. Now there's a medical database on you, don't you? Like assume they know. They're going to say, yeah. Okay, it's called the Medical Insurance Board. And that is a repository of all your health conditions that you've dealt with when you've ever applied for life insurance or health insurance. They keep track of all your health issues. So the insurance companies pretty much know all the medications you're taking and your general health problems and surgeries. So it's important that when I ask you these questions, that we're as accurate as possible. Because if we're not accurate and we don't put everything in there when they ask it, they're going to think you're trying to hide something, and they're going to think you're trying to lie to them, and they will decline you if they think you're not being forthcoming and truthful. Okay. Does that make sense, Joe and Mary? So when I ask you these health questions, you got to think real hard how you should answer that properly. Okay. Now, a lot of people automatically think that they're going to get declined if they disclose that they had bypass surgery. Not always. Okay. So we just need to make sure that we match what's on the application to what's in the MIB database. Does that make sense, Joe and Mary? So please, let's be as accurate as possible. That should put what we call a steel in their spine to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Okay, so help them, God in heaven. All right, so that's another way to make sure they tell you the truth on all your applications. Okay, now another way to mitigate, especially if you're doing fully underwritten, another way to mitigate those issues, and it's I witnessed all this firsthand. Erica clap. You know
I
what?
did. I did. I'm so glad that you brought it up, actually, and it reminded me of mistakes that I had made in the past. But my previous, I was with a company before this, and it was so hard, and it was like a waiting game. And when it comes to those medical records and the whole process, you can't drop the ball. Like you have to. Like a lot of times, I would call the nurse. I would call her before I left my visit, like, "Hey, let me go ahead and connect you to the nurse that we work with, and we'll go ahead and get this scheduled," because I knew it was going to be. And imagine at Christmas time, I had an app at Christmas time, and I was held up. It was a fully underwritten app, and I didn't get paid on it until after Christmas. But I mean, I'm so glad that you brought that up. I mean, it's all.
All right, confirmation. Yay. Thanks, Erica. Yeah, so you think I'm probably over teaching it, but I am not. You got to get now. There are some people like Karen Musil was really good at writing fully underwritten, and I actually myself I had a uh, a very high rate of placing fully underwritten. Not as good as simplified issue, but because I did all these anal things. I mean, I'll tell you some things I did, but I don't want to share this to get medical records. Okay, I'll share it. I had actually clients sign a letter I wrote for them, threatening. Like it got serious. And the gist of the letter was, "Dear Dr. So-and-so, I'm currently applying for life insurance with F&G Life, and it's taking forever to get your medical records people to send my medical records in. Now, we could have a serious problem here because should I die and not get this policy in place, then my beneficiaries have every opportunity to take legal action. And I don't want to have that happen. Like, I'm serious. I'm not kidding. Okay. Legal action. I don't want to have that happen, but please don't put me in the position or put my beneficiaries in the position to do this. I'm going to be dead. But I would put that letter together. I have the client sign, and then I would send it in for them to the doctor's office. So some of those little things have gotten the doctor off his butt. Okay. Anyway, again, you might think I'm overstating this, but I totally am not. So those are really some of the keys to writing fully underwritten. And some of y'all experienced agents, I'm sure you can say amen to that, right? So let's see if so thank you, Erica, for helping me out there. I don't see Mark on here. Let's see if Bernard's on here. Hey, Bernard. Bernard on? Don't see Bernard.
Hey, Alex, Bernard's recovering from the shoulder surgery, so he's probably not on tonight because he had surgery today.
Oh, bummer. Yeah, this is like what Erica says. Doctors' offices don't care about you getting paid as much as you do. They could give a crap about you. And then use your clients as much as possible to motivate the doctor. I've tried to call in and give them that threatening legal thing, and they kind of goes one ear in one ear out the other. But when the patient calls, much more effective. Okay, much more effective. And maybe you can even have the kids call, who would be the beneficiaries on behalf of the parent. Now it's the patient, the client is the one that is the best one to call. So, all right. Anyone have any questions on that? I know I went a long time on it, but I really can't emphasize that point enough. Anybody? No questions? Anyone with a horror story?
I do have one question.
Yeah.
What's the benefit for having fully underwritten in terms of simplified issue? I mean, from the way you're describing it, it seems like simplified issue is just a better way to go about things.
Generally it is. And okay, so let's explain That's a great question, actually, Tyler. So our simplified issue policies are rated to table D, 200% standard rating. And so these are typically what we call mortgage protection term. You know, back in the old days, we used to have mortgage protection term that was only for people that got a mortgage. In fact, we had to validate that the client got a mortgage in the last 12 months in order to write these type of policies on them. Because what they did was these policies were actually invented for mortgage protection. So they figured that if the client's motivated to apply for life insurance because they got a mortgage, the likelihood of them having some extreme health issues was lower than if they just applied for life insurance because they had health issues. They were motivated by a different reason. So back in the day, they had to have a mortgage. And then the underwriting of it started getting a little bit, like I said, table D, 200% standard, meaning that everyone is paying the same rate up to table D health. What's table D health? Typical table D health is diabetes, taking pills, diagnosed after age 50. They could have cholesterol, high blood pressure, so on, and pill diabetes. The underwriting guidelines start cracking down on any heart problems. So no carrier will do simplified issue term if the client has any kind of heart problems. They won't do simplified issue term on people with AFib. I'm not sure about sleep apnea. I think we have some carriers term policies that will simplified issue term that will do sleep apnea. But basically what they do is they look at all the conditions and see if it goes up above that table 4 rating. Okay, so you're asking what's table 4 rating? Okay, so you know how simplified issue term policies have typically, I'm just saying in general, they have a preferred plus rating, super preferred, preferred plus, preferred, standard, and then table rating, meaning table A, which is what, 25%, table B is 50, table C, okay. Let's just table A, table B, table C, table D, 200%. So table C would be like 150 and then 100 and so on. And it goes up to H, which is I think 300%. Anyway, the worse the client's health is, the higher table rating, which means they pay more per thousand. So someone at the D table rating would normally will pay more than someone at the standard health rating, okay? And so on. So that's how they rate clients. If they're doing full blood and urine testing, they want to rate you exactly where you fit on the underwriting guidelines relative to, super preferred to table H, 300%, okay? So what is simplified issue term? Simplified issue term, what they did is, why don't we take everyone from super preferred to table D, and let's have them pay an average price, okay, to cover all the risks. And when someone's super preferred, that's only like 4% of the population, like a very small percentage get super preferred. Preferred plus, a little bit larger. Okay, so let's say if someone did a fully underwritten blood and urine exam on a $100,000 policy, let's say and it was rated at table D, like to say they're diabetic. Now let's say they're paying for a $100,000 policy, 10-year term. Let's say they're paying $200 a month for that. Okay. Well, the same client who's table D, no heart problems, but the same issues, metformin for diabetes diagnosed after age 50, high blood pressure, cholesterol, whatever. If they did a simplified issue with no blood and urine, they're probably paying, instead of $200, they could be paying like $125. Okay. So you see the difference in price. Well, Alex, could someone just start with fully underwritten, and then now that they know their table rating, they can apply for the simplified issue? Does not work that way. Because what part of the process in applying for simplified issue is they're going to look at your MIB to see if you've had any fully underwritten, if you'd applied for life insurance before, and then they're going to find out that that's a fully underwritten. They're going to ask, okay, so you did a paramed exam, right? Can we take a look at the paramed exam? Okay. They see if you're table D, they're not going to give it to you. They're going to decline you for simplified issue. Okay. So you can go from simplified issue to fully underwritten, but you can't go from fully underwritten to simplified issue. You can't play those kind of games, right? So, well, Alex, that's not fair. Oh, it's fully fair. Because what you're banking on, what the insurance company is banking on is that client's healthy enough. Now, remember, the MIB is going to be there to protect the insurance company from underwriting someone who should not be a true table D simplified issue, right? And then they also have all those knockouts that you can't even submit it if they have heart problems or AFib or some more serious conditions. Okay, so you ask the question, while simplified issue should be good for everyone, yeah, it should, and we don't. But Alex, what if they're really super preferred, but they're getting a simplified issue? Aren't they paying more than someone who's a table D getting a simplified issue? Yes, the answer is yes. Okay. But the problem with that is, do you know that they're super preferred? Like, how do you know for a fact that they are? Okay. And therein lies the problem, because you don't know that there's something wrong with their blood. Well, they should just get an exam, right? But a doctor's office won't look at everything that an insurance carrier looks at with their blood and urine. So if you are reasonably sure they had a good blood test, then maybe you can't submit it like that. And if it was recent, like within the last 30, 45 days, okay? But now you're banking on there's nothing else wrong with them. And we have had clients find out things that are wrong with them through a paramed exam. And sometimes it's a good thing. Like I had a client, this is an actual case, where I did simplified issue. And they found out that this guy went to an emergency room. Okay, so they actually asked me to go find out what happened. And oh, I know what happened. Actually, I'm sorry. He did fully underwritten. Okay. And so they checked him out. But they found out that he had irregular heartbeat. In fact, they called me right away. They said, Alex, your client, he needs to go to an emergency room right now. I go, what do you mean? Because his heart is in a state that he could die any second. And so the problem was he fell off a roof. I mean, he wasn't seriously injured other than his heart got out of rhythm. And what they detected on the blood urine test, and this guy had EKG, his EKG was funky to the point where they called me and I said, hey, Mr. Client, you need to go to emergency room right now to get your heart checked out, because they think that you have to get shocked for your heart to get back in rhythm. So the client immediately went to the emergency room. Guess what? They had to shock his heart back into rhythm. So the paramed exam actually saved his life. And then 6 months later, we were able to reapply for life insurance, and he got the life insurance that he was looking for. So, who knows? Like, again, you find out stuff wrong with them with a paramed exam. Now, to their advantage or not, I don't know. I think to their disadvantage if they get declined, but you don't know. Okay. So I don't know if that answers your question, Tyler. I think it should answer your question. This is a whole actually teaching on underwriting. But okay, so having said that, Alex, where does whole life fit in this whole thing? Whole life fits in like this. So usually I'll say whole life final expense policies, you're typically looking at maybe a lower amount, F&G or A mutual vol you can write up to 40,000, I think. Most of them are 25, 30,000. Some are 40. I think there might be one that does 50,000. Okay. Now these whole life policies are simplified issues. So you can't do on final expense an exam or an APS. They're not going to request medical records on final expense. So what they do is they rely on what the client says and the MIB. And so what they did was they built into these whole life policies table 6. Okay, so that'll be D, E, F. Okay, so table 6. So table 6 standard. So the first state benefit policies can include a lot of more conditions than diabetes. Okay, it could be insulin diabetic. It could be AFib, well, depending on company, it could be AFib. You know, a lot more different problems because it goes up to table 6 health rating. And so that's why, so whole life will go the rest of their life and it's guaranteed to go the rest of life. So that's the other thing they're paying for. You know, they're paying for table 6. But Alex, what if they're at table 2 and they're perfectly healthy? They're still going to pay, again, it's the average, more for whole life, plus it's guaranteed to go the rest of their life, plus it's guaranteed, doesn't grow a lot of cash value, but that's why there's a lot of expenses involved in whole life. That's why it costs more for a client, okay? So when they go out of table 6 that puts them into graded benefit. So this is where, you know, the policy is not fully available till 2 years. You know, it's a graded benefit. They die in the first year, they get a certain percentage. Die in the second year, they get another higher percentage. You know, if they die in an accident, they get the full amount during the first 2 years or 3 years, whatever the graded period is. But that means they're above table 6, okay, but not decline, okay? Now, or I should say guaranteed issue. So guaranteed issue is guaranteed issue. So anybody who's not able to even get, let's say it's table 8 rated for graded benefit, then the next stop, the last stop on the last station on the trip to getting underwriting is guaranteed issue, and that's, you know, priced way more, but it's guaranteed issue after it's been in place, you know, X number of years, 2-3 years, they full amounts there, etc. Right? They die during the first 2 years or 3 years, they get the premiums paid plus 10%. Okay, so you got to be really, really sick, right? But at least we have that policy to be able to cover people. Okay. So Alex, tell me about the Index Universal Life Express Mutual Vol and Smart UL. Universal Life is written under the same quote unquote chassis as simplified issue term. So it's standard up to table 4. So anyone that could typically get an unsimplified issue term, you get a simplified issue UL. Now, what's the great thing about UL? UL is designed to be permanent, so it could last the rest of their life as long as you write it at the proper premium rate. So for Forrester's Smart UL, you can write that at Smart Solve. Smart Solve will typically get the thing to run to 120. Index Universal Life Express, I think the default is to age 120, but never do minimum. Like, seriously, gang, do not ever write IULs or ULs at minimum. Never do that. Never do that. Make sure you fund it well enough it'll go the rest of the policy year. Now, Alex, why is UL maybe sometimes better than whole life final expense? Well, because remember, table 4 versus table 6. So if you got a healthy person getting a whole life policy paying, you know, the higher rate, okay, they could qualify for Smart UL or IULE at a lower rate for the same amount of face value. Okay, so what you're trading off for a whole life on a UL, number one, it's not guaranteed, but as long as you fund it well enough, it will go the rest of their life. But they can get a cheaper rate per 1,000 because it's rated at table 4, okay, instead of table 6. So, for example, and I invite you to do the comparison. The other thing with the IULE or Smart UL, the minimum face value is 25,000. Okay. So with final expense, you can write it all the way down to 2,500 or 5,000. But there's a sweet spot where, you know, depending on age and health, you could get someone 25,000 with a UL versus 15,000 for the same premium on a whole life final expense policy. So let's say, you know, a 50-year-old's paying $75 a month for 10,000 on a $15,000 whole life policy. For that same $75 a month, they could get a smart UL for 25,000 that will last the rest of their life. So they're going to get more. So where is the opportunity there? When you're going competitive and someone says, well, I already got that policy. Oh, you did? Well, tell me what company. It's this company. Typically, it's one of our companies that we've written with. And, well, is that the only option they showed you? Yeah. Well, how would you like for me to maybe be able to save you a lot of money depending on your health? Tell me about your health. What medications are you taking? Well, I'm pretty healthy. I just take high blood pressure medication. Really? And they're making you pay all that much money for 15,000 of life insurance? I think I can get you 25,000 for the same premium. I mean, would you like me to show you some options? Boom. You got a chance to replace that policy with a universal life policy. So that's kind of why understanding table ratings and is important so that you know where you can be competitive with a client. Okay. I know that was kind of a long-winded answer, but to my own question. But does that make sense at all? Wyatt, everyone's confused.
When you're talking about the UL, are you talking about a simplified issue or
Yes.
okay?
Simplified issue. So we're talking Smart UL with Foresters or Index Universal Life Express with Mutual of Omaha. I know we have some ULs or UL style products with Americo and American Amicable. You know, I'm not talking about, I mean, those also apply. I'm just more familiar with, you know, the Foresters and Mutual of Omaha. I know it's 9:26. Any other questions at all? If you're brand new people, you know, just hang in there. You're going to learn this. And this stuff's going to be super valuable when evaluating what product to write clients and the choice of, you know, how you can save someone money, taking very little risk. But I'm not saying do fully underwritten. Now, sometimes you have to go do IUL, an index universal life for tax-free retirement. Sometimes you really kind of have to do fully underwritten, unless it's, you know, they got basically decent help up to $1 million. Some of the $1 million IULs can go simplified issue. Like I wrote a policy, 60,000 a year AP policy several years ago, and through North American, actually. It was a 45-year-old, had a really straight up health situation, and I got that issued in 3 days. Can you imagine a 60,000 AP target premium AP policy through North American, and 3 days it got issued. Of course, I was fired up, you know, because it was just like a simplified issue. Well, it was simplified issue. So there are situations where it can be, you know, that can happen. Who else has got questions?
Hey, Alex.
Yeah. Hey, Josh.
How's it going? So my question is, do you recommend looking at both UL and final expense when you're kind of looking at someone, like looking at both options? Or is there certain scenarios that it's better to do so and others where there's no need?
Well, once you get smart and you know what you're talking about and you know how to ask questions, like you're going to have to really learn what is table 4 simplified issue for, you know, Smart UL and IULE, which the underwriting guidelines are out there. So you can actually read the underwriting guidelines. What a concept, right? Read the underwriting guidelines and it'll tell you, you know, the medications that they'll reject, those kind of issues on whether or not they can get into it or not. And once you get smart enough, like if they've got basic, decent health, blood pressure, cholesterol, again, diabetes diagnosed after age 50, that they're only taking pill medications, potentially they can get into it. But you start adding on anxiety, depression meds, you start taking a laundry list of issues. Again, any heart problem, for sure, no. Okay. But then you're playing a game. You're playing the decline game. If you don't know your underwriting guidelines and you get someone on Smart UL or IULE and they get declined, your client, and then you try to write a whole life policy because probably they can get the whole life. Their clients aren't too excited to work with you. Okay. And so you have to be very negative or pessimistic with your client. Okay, so never, ever, ever, never, ever, ever be overly optimistic that the client is going to get approved. This is a dangerous thing that a lot of new agents, you're all puppy dogs out there going, glory, hallelujah, I closed my first sale. And then you're all with the client, like, when do you get this policy issue? Get issued in like a week, 3 days to a week. And, everything's hunky-dory and you're all jacked up, okay? And then when you tell the client, when you find out later that's been declined, particularly when it gets declined on something you wrote on the application, that is a cardinal sin. Should never happen. You're writing down on an application something like height and weight guidelines. Oh my gosh, that drives me nuts. When someone writes an app on a height and weight guideline where it's clearly declined, clearly declinable, and you get it declined, and you're all puppy dog happy that they're going to get it, and then you have to tell them, hey, Joe, and they sound like you, or hey, Joe, I got some bad news. They declined you. Can I come over and let's look at that other policy? And you were so happy that you got a sale and you're overly optimistic that it would get issued. Anyway. So that's what you're running into. It can be a problem if you don't characterize it properly. So how do you characterize it properly? Say it's always if the insurance carrier should decide to approve you. It may not get approved. We're hoping that it will. But if it doesn't get approved, I have other options. Okay, but we're going to try this for now. Okay, if you hang in there with me, we're going to find the best premium price according to your health situation. Sometimes we have to go through, we have to go through this in order to, get it approved. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm glad you brought that up, Josh. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So don't be overly optimistic. Always have that air of, plus it gives you a little more posture with the situation because say, look, we're going to find out within a week. Okay, now you're probably going to find out tomorrow. But you tell the client a week, man, because it could take a week. But don't ever, always under promise and over deliver. I'm a big proponent of that. And when it comes to underwriting, you have to totally under promise and over deliver. So be neutral to pessimistic, okay, with the client. Say, we hope we can get this issued. If it were up to me, I would love to issue it on you because you're such a nice couple. It's not up to me. The insurance carrier is going to have to think about you. They're going to have to determine if you can get approved for this policy. So that's why we're going to have to go through this process. And should they approve you, glory, hallelujah, they're going to send you the policy and I'm going to come over. I'll go over it with you and we'll see at that point whether or not we need to make any changes. Okay, so tonight's not to think about it tonight because there's nothing to think about. Okay, the only time you can think about anything is if you know that it's approved. Now, worst case scenario, if they decline you, they choose not to issue this policy based on the MIB database and what we put in your application. I can come back and I've got other options. Okay. And then we'll go over those other options. Okay. But I just want you to know straight up what could or could not happen. Or is that fair, Joe and Mary? Always end with a question. Okay. Does that make sense, gang? All right.
Yes.
Any more questions?
I have a question. I was gonna say too, don't be like me because I feel like next time just when you're talking about me, just say my name. Because I've lost sales, like there were times where I was, confident and I feel like when we're talking to people, we tend to show that or we say things. So I think verbiage is very important and you have to be very careful about what you're saying, once you've written that application and if you're feeling pretty good about it, because there was a lot of them I felt pretty good about. And then I turned, they were declined or they were rated so high that they didn't want to pay for it. So you just can't get too excited. And I'm like, he's talking about me tonight. um, so the question that I had was, is there like a list or a document that shows all of the parameds that are used, or do we need to call exam one to access like if like for example, because I have my license in Missouri, if I was to have an appointment, on Zoom and they did need an exam, how would I go about, would I just
Okay.
call?
So I think I've got a short list of 4 paramed exam companies, 1-800 numbers, and you can start there to order them actually. So I'll get that out to everybody.
Okay, that sounds good.
The three popular ones are APPS, Exam 1, EMSI actually. EMSI is another one. There's probably some other ones out there, but the best, actually, the other way to do it is call the carriers underwriting and ask them, who are your approved paramed exam companies? Okay. Now, the 3 that I mentioned typically are approved with all of them, at least all the ones we work with. But if you want to just really make sure, ask the carrier underwriting, say, who are your approved list of paramed exam companies? Now, we've had really good luck with APPS apps. Exam 1, depending on area of the country and actually city, it varies from city to city. It's crazy, so you can't automatically assume that, one city's EMSI is going to be as good as another one's. So those are my recommendations. But I'll try to get a list out to y'all. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Wow, this is a really good session, man. I hope y'all learned something, and it's just really kind of underwriting 101. But that, like, if you're brand new, don't freak out. You're good with Great Western. They've got all 3 versions of whole life. Should you run into a situation where UL might work better, call me. Check with me, check with Joy. We're gonna have to really find out about their health conditions, see if that might work. So anyway, gang, rock on, man. Appreciate y'all. Good job, and we'll talk to you soon. Our next call, we're going to talk about this lead program tomorrow at 9 p.m. It's a little bit more, well, we'll find about it. So if you're interested in a localized lead program where you can do localized in-home appointments, this seems to be a good one because there are agents out there that have really done well with it. So, all right, rock on, gang. God bless. See ya. Bye.
Hey, Alex, before
Yeah.
you leave, is
Yeah.
that 9 p.m. Eastern time or?
9 p.m. Eastern. Okay,
Okay.
so just as a matter of protocol, whenever I mention time, remember we've got like 4 time zones because we got Hawaii sometimes. I always baseline everything to East Coast time. Okay, so if you ever hear me mention a time, always assume I'm talking East Coast. All right. So thanks for that question. All right, gang, rock on. See ya.